This morning, fallout from President Trump's trade war, tariffs leading to layoffs, higher prices, and growing uncertainty. Republican Congressman Roger Williams in a unique position. He owns a car dealership and is defending the president. The new chairman of the Texas Democratic Party also with us this morning. Why Kendall Scudder wanted this job and his plan to turn the party around. The federal investigation into Attorney General Ken Paxton now appears to be over, and it's not because of President Trump. Just as spring storm season arrives, why don't state agencies have a plan for it? State Rep Rafael Anchia on the legislation he wants to pass in Austin. And a month after Congressman Sylvester Turner's death, why Democrats say Governor Abbott is denying representation to 800,000 Houstonians.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning. I'm Jason Whiteley. A lot to get to this morning, but let's start with the headlines as always here. Texas Democrats are warning Governor Abbott to either call a special election to replace the late Sylvester Turner, or the governor needs to lawyer up, they say. Dems accuse Abbott of delaying the election to deny Democrats that vote in Congress. Sylvester Turner died unexpectedly 1 month ago. Republicans already have a slim majority there in D.C. Democrats say they might now sue Abbott for denying representation to 800,000 Houstonians. Abbott's office told me that an announcement on this will be made at a later date. The federal corruption investigation into Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, it appears to be over for good, and Paxton should thank Joe Biden, not Donald Trump. The Associated Press is reporting that Biden's Justice Department quietly decided not to prosecute Paxton in the final weeks of Biden's term. The AP says it wasn't a political decision, but one made by a career prosecutor. And President Trump can claim success on the southern border. Illegal crossings hit another new low last month. The numbers are striking in February of last year. It was 189,000 undocumented immigrants that got caught. This February, the number went from 189,000 to 11,000. Then last month, it fell even further to 7,100 people detained. Stopping illegal immigration, as you know, was a central theme of Trump's campaign. All right, let's start this morning with fallout from President Trump's trade war. Markets have plunged, prices are rising, and Stellantis was one of the first automakers to immediately announce layoffs. That's the company that makes Dodge, Chrysler, and Jeep vehicles. Well, our first guest this morning, Republican Congressman Roger Williams, who happens to own a Dodge, Chrysler, and Jeep dealership in Weatherford. Mr. Chairman, good morning to you here. You're in this unique position here. Let's talk politics secondly, but let's get into business first here. President Trump said, do not raise car prices. And I'm curious, have you or will you raise car prices with these tariffs?
Well, our industry is very interesting, Jason. I mean, we're pretty resilient. And I think what you're going to see happen, needless to say, there's going to be a cost of goods sold going up. I mean, we're going to see a little of that. And the car industry will. But at the same time, I think that the consumers actually could benefit from all this because, you know, in the car industry, if we have a vehicle that's been on the lot too long, we'll discount it, which if that happens with these cars that come in with tariffs, we'll begin to discount. We're going to have we're going to see used car values go sizably up, I think. Coupled with the tax cuts we're going to be able to pass sometime in April. And even today, this morning, I noticed where the Chrysler, Ford, I haven't seen about GM, but Chrysler and Ford are beginning to offer discounts to customers. In other words, they're offering this morning that you can come in and buy from a Chrysler or Ford dealer and pay the same thing that an employee pays or employee with a factory or a local dealership. Sure. So I already see the manufacturers are discounting. So I think between the discounts from the dealers, the discounts from the manufacturer, the tax cuts we're going to have, and the increase in used cars prices, I think that very well a customer could be in a position where they actually buy a car for less, one with a tariff as opposed to not tariff. I think that's where we're heading.
Well, I agree with you. The demand for used cars will most likely indeed go up. But I'm curious, if Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep charges you more as a dealer for a vehicle, are you going to absorb that price increase, or are you going to pass that along to customers?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, we're going to do what we have to do. I mean, every deal is different. And, you know, if we arrive at a price with the consumer, that's the price. So sometimes that price may be a little bit more margin for a dealer, maybe less for a dealer, better for a customer. But it's all going to convert to fair pricing, because we have to do that to be competitive. And of course, when we do that, we start talking about service and so forth. But pricing is going to be fair to the customer. We wouldn't sell it. We wouldn't be in business.
I was reading that Stellantis, which makes Dodge, Chrysler, and Jeep, for our viewers who don't realize that, it announced it's going to temporarily lay off 900 people, close a couple of plants because of President Trump's tariffs. Are you going to get new vehicles and parts to be able to sell?
Oh, I think so. I mean, they're not. Things might be slowed down a little bit, but it will begin to pick up. And I saw where they laid off 900 people, like you said, in Canada. I think those people will be back on the job here shortly, because look, at the business is good. The car business is good. I think we're going to have a great year. I think Main Street's going to have a great year. And the car business is good. We're going to be ordering cars. If there's a car ordered, they need to make it. That's how they make their money. So look, this is a shock for everybody. It's exactly what President Trump ran on. He said he was going to do this. I think at the end of the day, it flattens out and we cut the trade imbalances we have with these other countries, and free markets and competition exist. And that converts, again, like I said, to the benefit of the consumer.
And you sound quite confident for folks who are watching their 401ks dwindle in the stock market right now, and small businesses are facing higher costs. You do sound quite confident that this is going to work itself out.
No, I do. And I'm an entrepreneur, like a lot of your listeners. Small business people are confident people. They get early, they stay late. And all they want, I'm telling you, if we could pull that trigger today of taxes, regulations, 100% expensing, small business would take off and their attitudes would be fantastic.
Mr. Chairman, we always appreciate the time, sir. Thank you.
I see, Jason. Thank you.
All right, let's bring in the roundtable to talk about the politics of this. Renzo Downey is with us from the Texas Tribune in Austin. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. But my question is, politically, how long can Republicans sustain this support of tariffs?
Well, you can hear in his voice how painful it is for Chairman Williams. And disclosure here, I have bought a car from Roger Williams 25 years ago before he was in politics. It was one of those slow sellers that he had the discount. But you can tell he's talking about how dealers are going to have to cut prices. Dealers are going to take the bath on this. And so not just the makers, but the dealers are going to it's going to cost them money. They're going to have to cut staff. They're going to have to cut back on what they provide. Republicans are very proudly and bravely trying to put polish on this, but it really is going to be a problem.
And that's a good point, Bernadine. Proudly and bravely trying to put polish on this, but it is an expensive issue.
It is a very expensive issue. And you know what? One has to wonder how long they think that the average person is going to continue to accept putting that kind of message out, because when they can't pay buy groceries, and you have the 401s that are tanking, they're not going to continue to listen to let's wait. They're going to want those representatives to do something quickly.
And Renzo, it's a question I had, in this conversation as well, too. How long can Texans sustain these higher prices?
Yeah, well, this is something that pretty directly affects consumers. I mean, a direct price increase on goods is something that's going to be reflected on your pocketbook. So, this is going to be tough for people to bear.
Yeah, I think so indeed, and they will definitely feel it in their wallets, as you said. Guys, thanks so much. Back to you all in just a moment. A lot more ahead here, including this. When we come back this morning, a new day for Texas Democrats. 1 week onto the job, the party's new chairman has big plans. And why shouldn't state agencies have a severe weather plan? State Rep Rafael Anchia is arguing for it when Inside Texas Politics returns. Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. For the first time in 12 years, there is a new leader for the Texas Democratic Party. It's Kendall Scudder, elected last weekend, a progressive millennial who had a pint with us on this week's episode of Y'all-itics and said Texas Democrats need to rethink what they are doing.
There is no time to waste, and there needs to be a sense of urgency for every Democrat, not just to build an institution and apparatus, but because we're terrified of what's happening in our government right now and what it's going to mean for working people. And if you're going to go on the news and tell people that, act like it. People aren't seeing this level of urgency in the party that they want to. They see Democrats just crying foul and saying, oh my gosh, we're so upset. Well, what are you doing about it? So I'm wanting to show people it's a new day in the Texas Democratic Party. You just elected a millennial progressive to lead your party. And we're going to be operating with the understanding that That's what the people on the ground want. And if that works for me at the next convention, awesome. And if it doesn't, that's great. I'm going to roll up my sleeves and help the next folk.
What should people expect to see over the next 3 or 4 months, first 90 days from you?
You should see a Democratic Party that has more bite in it. You'll see a Democratic Party that doesn't just take punches, but throws them too. You're going to see a Democratic Party that is much more present in places where we typically haven't been, and that is willing to start making right some things where people on the ground have felt like we've fallen them short. And I think you're going to see a Democratic Party that really emphasizes and focuses in on what this broken, rigged economy looks like for working people.
Billionaires like Donald Trump have successfully stolen away the working class, I would say, from the Democratic Party. What is the Democratic Party not saying?
They have in elections, but they have also successfully killed the middle class. And so, why we as a party have gotten I think we got scared of the Donald Trump situation. We locked ourselves into preserving institutions. We were terrified of what could happen to this republic that we care so much about, and lost the guttural reactions of why people vote. Folks vote with their guts, not their heads, right? And so instead of leading with the idea that we're here to preserve institutions that have failed working people time and time again, we're going to talk about that from time to time as it makes sense. Maybe some of those institutions don't need to be preserved. What we're going to focus on is making sure that working people are the center of every discussion we're having, and how every bill we write, every bill we are able to get passed, everything we advocate for, how does it impact a person that's trying to put soccer cleats on their kiddo?
The golden goose that the Republicans have is this messaging. They have it down. They have AM radio. They have cable news. They have social media. How do you counter that? Grassroots is great, but it seems like the younger voter is on TikTok. You need the influencers to move into the next generation to find that voter. What's your plan?
Yeah, what do you do, millennial?
To answer that question now, is I would say as a party, we've been very risk adverse and hesitant on alternative media. I think the one example that's been beaten like a drum is the Kamala Harris, Joe Rogan example, right? Where maybe you're afraid to go on places that they disagree with you. Well, I go places where people disagree with me all the time. We call it Thanksgiving dinner, right? I mean, when
your family disagrees with you?
When you're a Democrat from East Texas, you're not walking into a room of liberals, okay?
Texas Democratic leaders rarely talk like Kendall. If you want to know what's next for the state's underdog political party, this episode's one to download. It's out right now. You can look for Y'all-itics wherever you get your podcasts. All right, it has been a wet weekend in many parts of the Texas here. A state lawmaker says it's now time, though, for state agencies to come up with plans on how they will operate through and respond to severe weather. State Rep. Rafael Anchia is behind new legislation that would do that. He is a Democrat who represents parts of Dallas. Representative, welcome back to the program here. House Bill 2618, it calls on many state agencies to create a severe weather plan to look at the changing climate. I know that phrase is kind of tarnished from a lot of people, but what is not being done that you want the state to do?
Well, let me set the stage for you, Jason. The state climatologist at Texas A&M, very conservative institution, projects that we will experience more frequent and intense extreme weather events, including hotter temperatures, increased drought and severity, and more intense hurricanes and flooding over the next decade. Whether you think that these changes in severe weather are man-made or not, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't pass the eye test for most Texans. So what we're trying to tell the state agencies is to have a severe weather mitigation and adaptation plan in place to deal with two really important things. Number one is the human toll. And between 1980 and 2023, more than 7,000 Texans lost their lives due to severe weather. What I'm asking the 15 most important state agencies to do is be proactive and sort of take that Scouts motto, be prepared. And we want them to present these plans every 2 years, ensuring that we have a forward-thinking strategy to assess our vulnerabilities, protect critical systems, minimize financial loss, and, importantly, stand up the agencies once again after the disaster so that it can be responsive to the people of Texas.
there's no cost to taxpayers on this. So why was this left in committee? It seems pretty benign.
Yeah, it is just a byproduct of us taking stakeholder input, coming up with a committee substitute, and bringing it back to committee. So there's no problem with the bill. I think it'll get passed out of committee and get passed out of the House floor. It's just a matter of us working with the different state agencies on the language of the bill, so it's going to work. Because when you're dealing with 15 state agencies, that's a lot of jurisdiction.
Representative, let's talk about school vouchers for a moment. Speaker Burrows says there's more than enough votes to get school vouchers passed in the House. The House, as you know, has always been a roadblock for vouchers in previous sessions. What should we expect from Democrats as this debate unfolds?
Just as there may be more than 75 votes to pass a bill in the House, and I believe the Speaker of the House is probably right about that, there are also more than 75 votes to add amendments to this particular piece of legislation. And if a voucher bill is going to pass, Democrats are going to play a big role in making sure that there's transparency and accountability on these public funds that are going to subsidize private entities.
And it seems like accountability is the thing that Democrats are really demanding. If a private school is going to get public money, they have to show they're spending it wisely and these students actually learning.
And that we have the controls in place to account for that money over the long term. Finally, we need to know if on an apples to apples basis, the private schools that are receiving the money are producing better educational outcomes, because that's really what this is about.
Representative Anchia, good to see you again. We appreciate the time.
Thanks so much, Jason.
And the roundtable is ready when we come back here on Inside Texas Politics. All right, time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Renzo Downey back with us from the Texas Tribune in Austin. He's a lead writer for their premium political newsletter called The Blast that you can get. Bud Kennedy is here with us from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Bernadine Steptoe, of course, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Bernadine, let's start with you. And the Texas House is soon going to take up school vouchers, the entire chamber here. Well, what do you expect that debate to look like? Because earlier in the program here, we did ask Rafael Anchia, Democrat from Dallas, whether Democrats are really going to play a role in trying to influence this legislation.
And I don't see what role Democrats will play other than to try to add amendments. But at this point, it appears as if the Republicans have cut the deals with those rural Republicans in the sense that they have increased the base amount that students will receive, and they're moving toward adopting and putting into law this voucher amendments to the voucher bill. It's going to happen. And I think the question is, how soon?
And Renzo, for people who watched the House Public Education Committee pass this out the other day, this was not live streamed, which was a little unusual. We saw the back and forth between State Rep James Tallarico and the chairman, Brad Buckley. What was that all about?
Yes, well, normally in the legislature, when you have a committee hearing, that is going to be streamed. But in this case, the committee got together as a formal meeting. They weren't really taking testimony on the bill. They weren't hearing from experts. They weren't hearing from the public. It was mostly questions from members about the changes that were made to the bill since the last time they met on it. So because of that setting, they felt it more appropriate to do it as this formal meeting. And so if you did see video of it, that was from people in the audience, people in the public who were filming that. Yeah. And it kind of overtook the committee itself as one of the talking points of, why is the committee doing this in a different way than usual?
Yeah, it dominated the headlines, Bud. What are you hearing from people on this? Because you and I like to talk about it. People who are in the industries talk about it. But are Texans really talking about school vouchers?
Not really at all. You hear people that say they need it. You hear the Catholic bishops, of course, saying they need it for their schools. You hear the teachers campaigning ardently against it. But it's not something that is got the general conversation. Everybody's talking about the economy, and where that's going to take a hit is that they did cap this at $1 billion experiment pilot program, and that cap still, if we don't keep having this surplus, the state's going to run out of money to pay for these vouchers.
Bernadine, earlier in the program, we talked about how Republican lawmakers are hesitant, as usual, to offer any criticism of their president. Democrats are as well, too. But what are Texans saying about these far-reaching implications of tariffs? And have you heard of any Republicans besides the 4 members of the U.S. Senate who are critical of the tariff plan?
No, and I don't think that at this point we will hear from Republicans in terms of criticizing President Trump. I mean, you do it at your own risk.
Sure.
Because he has shown what happens when you do criticize him. But as we have said earlier and at different times, sooner or later something has to happen to relieve consumers and to relieve the voters, because they're going to feel it. And that's when you're going to see a lot of the chatter going on, when it continues to hurt the consumers and eventually the voters.
Yeah, and one question no one can answer, Renzo, which only the president can probably, is how long this is going to last.
Yeah, well, part of the argument that you hear from Republicans as they're giving, muted support for Trump on the tariffs is that, well, this is just a negotiating tactic. This isn't going to be in place for very long. And, that argument is that, Trump is not your traditional negotiator. And, we've seen before on tariffs that it's kind of start, stop. So there really is a question on how long this will be in place. And I think part of that is going to be how people react to it.
But indeed so. Final word this morning.
Well, Jason, a lot of the Republicans are just staying quiet, but Wesley Hunt, who's making noise about running for Senate, he says that the tariffs restore fairness and strength. Brian Babin said, we're fighting back. America first.
We shall see what happens and how long these last. Guys, we appreciate it as always. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching as well. We're back next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics, and we hope to see you then. Take care.